Hello, everyone. Happy Memorial Day weekend. Hope you're enjoying the weekend so far and have a great time honoring those who gave their lives for freedom in this country. Welcome once again to the Union Pacific Railroad Evanston Subdivision, the N-scale inspired HO layout. My name is Daryl Kruse, owner and builder of the layout, and your host for episode 21 of season 2022. This episode features the very first few feet of the second level. We are looking at locomotives coming into the second level, which is going to be very, very simple for the most part. And this location here is only 10 inches wide. And it's just going to be flat on plywood with photo backdrops. One great thing about this second level is you get to see the models go by at eye level. So this is my eye level right here. But it goes up to 69 inches. This is 65 right there. And it's going to go up to 69. So a lot of eye level running of trains should be pretty cool. But this is the Evanston sub of the Union Pacific Railroad. And just a quick overview. This is where you come into the layout room. Nice big open aisle. There'll be a couch here and TV for the crew lounge area. And you have Morgan there in the distance coming along to the Weber Valley or Weber Canyon with Taggart Mountains and Devil's Slide. And then it comes into the Devil's Slide control point and another crossing of the Weber River and the Wholesome Cement area. This is where Wholesome Cement's going to be. And then Echo, the city of Echo, the little town of Echo, Echo Canyon, and then coming up to the Castle Rock area. This is the area where the main lines separate and take two different paths going up the Wasatch Grade. This is the one spot where I have some scenery done. Not finished scenery, but some scenery you can kind of get an idea what it's going to look at. Curville right there that we're going by quickly. And it's kind of cool this area where the two main lines are at different elevations. This is my old Geneva sub layout where we're going to have the Mississippi River Bridge just on display. Coming up then to the Wasatch Summit, another control point at the top of the Wasatch Grade. Let's fix this signal here. This is the staging yard that I began construction with as a kind of control center for Digitrax. Started this all process back in September of last year. And now we are here at where the action is right now in constructing the layout. I have now spent 3 weeks on the Helix. I am glad I'm done. It's been an interesting experience. I'm very happy with the way everything turned out. But it is spending a lot of times going in round in circles. You don't really go anywhere. You just keep laying track, keep extending the main line, but you're not really going anywhere. But we do then have the transition from the Helix to the second level. Now, this is where we were last week. We got up to about this far, and then we are extending it into the second level. Now you look at it, it's kind of funky here what's happening. Instead of both tracks going to the second level, one of the tracks goes around a second time, or I should say a fifth time. So only one track goes to the second level. The other track goes to a fifth time around. It's not gaining any elevation, it's just level, and it comes around and it ends up on the other side. So the main line swap positions. This is probably a one of a kind. I don't know if anyone else has ever done this with their Helix, but because of Curvo, where the main lines cross, we have it here at this layout. Now what happens is The main lines from the second level, the left-hand track goes into the right-hand track of the Helix. So the left-hand track goes to the right-hand track. The right-hand track goes around an extra time, crosses over, and ends up on the other side. All right, everybody got that? Here you can actually see where they are crossing over. So one main line is in fact crossing over the other main line. It actually crosses over itself also. So one more time. The left-hand track from the second level goes into the right-hand track of the Helix. The right-hand track goes for another loop and ends up on the left-hand side. It really, when I designed this, I kept thinking in my mind, okay, is this really going to work? And so I had to kind of, picture it in your mind how it was going to happen. But here's the reason why we have that special feature, one-of-a-kind feature at the top of the Helix, is to even out the crossover that we have here. So if we, this is curval, and you can see on the little insert, the prototype does have this happening. This is curval, and I have it on the layout also. So you have the main lines crossing over. So some of the Evanston sub is left-hand running, some of it is right-hand running. From curval eastward, it's right-hand running. And then from curval westward, it's left-hand running. So the reason why we did this, or why I did this, is so that I can run trains continuously on their own. If you just have one crossover, or one flyover it's called, if you just have one flyover, you're basically going to end up with one long continuous single track main line that just goes around twice. So to maintain the integrity of the double track main line, we had to have a second crossover. That way I could run two trains while in opposite directions without them running into each other. So that was really, really important. So again, it's left-hand running from curval westward, right-hand running from curval eastward. Here's where we are going to be working next week. Looking forward, I'm going to be adding the Evanston yard. So this will be Evanston. This will be about the height of the bottom of the brackets. So it's going to be there at the beginning of the second level. It's only going to be 10 inches separation, but it shouldn't be too bad. It's only 10 inches wide, and the second level is going to come out 25 inches. So there's going to be a backdrop here from the bottom level that's going to extend up. It's just going to be to the second level there, but when the second level goes into the Helix, then the backdrop from the first level is going to come up about even with the top of the backdrop for the second level. So when you're standing here running trains at Evanston, you won't see the Helix and you won't see the staging yard throat. All right, the Evanston is going to come here, and then it's going to curve above the staging yard. So you will see part of the staging yard, but it's going to then run in between the furnace and the stairwell. There's just enough room to get two tracks through there with clearance. So from Evanston, moving eastward is going to come here and begin the second level. And it's going to come along this wall. Now here it's going to be more like 18 inches separation. There in the corner is going to be the Aspen Tunnels. But the second level is then going to go all the way around, completely around the basement, above the lower level. It's not going to go above the peninsula. So down there at the corner there, it's going to be the Aspen Tunnels. Now again, the second level is mainly going to be just 10 inches wide. And here it's going to be about 18 to 20 inches separation. So here I'm going to put the Aspen Tunnels. Morgan there is just going to be buildings and so forth, not much scenery, so I'm not too concerned about that there being overhang. Now here, when it gets to the Weber Valley, it's going to be just 10 inches wide, and it's going to run right along the top of that backdrop. So the idea is that it doesn't obstruct the view of the mountain, of the Tagger Mountain. And here's going to be Devil's Slide. Don't want it to obstruct Devil's Slide. Now here's one section, since it's going to be, leaving room above Devil's Slide. It's going to actually come out here, and it's going to extend out further than the lower level right here, just for a bit, and then it's going to curve and go back close to the closer to the wall as we go through Echo. The Echo Canyon. So there's going to be a lot of scenery here, Echo Canyon. So we're going to have it be narrower there. It is going to get wider here again, but it's going to be at 69 inches, so it's going to be pretty high separation. But it's going to be a little bit wider here because this is where the Trona mines are going to be. And 69 inches is pretty high for switching opportunity, so we're going to put a platform there, 8-inch platform. So when you're standing on the platform, it'll only be 61 inches high, so you'll be able to do the uncoupling and see what's going on as you're doing some switching. The second level's going to cut into that backdrop a little bit. It's going to go straight along the wall there. It's not going to come along the peninsula here. So when you're running trains, when you get to that point, you're going to have to walk around to get to your train. I'm going to have it set up. There's going to be a control point between one side of the peninsula to the other side of the peninsula. So I'm going to force the trains to stop there, and then the operator will have to push a button on the other side to get the green signal so he can continue. So we won't be allowing anybody to stand at the end of the peninsula and wait for the train to get back to them. And then the main line is going to go continually along the wall and then back to the second level. All right, now one thing we're going to do, since this yard throat won't be visible from the layout room, where I'm going to be thinking about having one person of the operating crew be a mole, M-O-L-E, who will spend the op session running trains from the staging yard up to the top of the Helix. That way the operating crew won't have to worry about dealing with the Helix at all. Now if we have a smaller crew, we probably will have the operators come back here and run their train up, but when we have a larger crew, one person's job will just be running trains up and down the Helix. So I have to get somebody who likes to do that kind of stuff. Might have it where we'll have somebody switch off. So have one person be the mole for first half of the session and then switch with the second person for the second half. But I think that'll work out pretty good. It'll be great if the train operators, the road crews, won't have to worry about the Helix at all. All right, so we're going to be operating here as the mole, and we're running a train up the Helix. Now, I have all the trains running in this direction because I've been running them up and down the Helix, but when we are having operating sessions, half of them will be facing in the other direction, since we'll be having trains going in both directions out of the staging yard. And we're going to go ahead and run this train up the Helix. Now, normally we'll go up the Helix on the outer track and down the Helix on the inner track, but just to kind of show that we'll operate in both directions. So we normally won't do this crossover. This is a pretty treacherous crossover because there's an S curve going into the crossover and then an S curve coming out of it. There's 3 S curves in a row. S curve going into it, the S curve of the crossover, and the S curve coming out of it. But surprisingly, and those are number 6 turnouts, but surprisingly, the cars make it through without any problem. I've even had auto racks go through there without any problems. But I know if I put on medium shank couplers, we're not going to be able to do that. But anyway, the mole can basically stand here and run their trains up the Helix. We'll be able to watch them more at eye level here through the different levels of the Helix. And he'll have a lot of room to operate there. He'll be able to reach most of the eastern half of the staging yard. So he can watch the train as it comes through, make sure everything is operating as precisely as possible. At this point, the railroad is left-hand running. Remember, it's left-hand running from Curvo westward. So they're still heading west at this point and won't switch over to right-hand running until we get to the top of the Helix and we get the second crossover. So normally when we have continuous running, the trains will be doing left-hand running and we'll be on the outer tracks, which will work out good. So anyway, the mole could come to the inside of the Helix if they wanted to and needed to. There is room for, even if the dispatcher is sitting there, there is room for the mole to operate behind the dispatcher. Don't think they would do that normally. I think it would only need to be done if there were some issues that they needed to come in and address. And they could, come in and re-rail cars, a couple of cars back up again. There won't be any derailments. I think things are pretty rock solid as far as derailments. Couplers is another thing that we may have issues with, especially until I get all the couplers switched out to 148s, at least the ones that aren't operating well. I'm running the trains here at 25 scale miles per hour. Want to go up as quickly as possible. The mole would also be responsible for running trains down the Helix. Again, it was important to have the second crossover because I operate trains. Oh, here's a good view of the train, of the details of the locomotives. But anyway, I do plan on, and I always have, run trains solo. And what I normally do is I'll have a couple of trains running in opposite directions on the main line, and then I'll take a third train and we'll run it out, do switching. In this case, we'll have it do switching at the UTLX tank facility just outside of Evanston. They might do some work at the Trona mine, and also some switching at the Wholesome Cement. I won't do it at all of them, but at one of those it might have some switching that it will need to do. And so I'll just take a train out, run it across the main line, stop where it needs to stop, do the switching, all while the trains are going in opposite direction. Now, of course, there will be some, trains having to cross over to go around and so forth. So I kind of do all that together. Here you can kind of watch the couplers and see that it's pretty even all the way around. And then also I do some switching at Evanston. So all the times while I'm doing that, I want the trains to run continuously and be able to do that. And so I had to have this second crossover. Otherwise, that would be impossible to have trains running continuously on both main lines in opposite directions. All right, so here the mole has gotten the train to the top of the Helix. So we would have this person run the trains to the point where both the road engineers and the mole can see the locomotive. So it would probably stop just shy of where the train would go on the other side of the backdrop. So right about here at the top, it would stop the train, and then it would release the train, and the road engineer would then be the one to take over and run the train across the main line. I am going to cut those screws off, by the way. Some people have been concerned about my safety. Thank you so much for that. Appreciate it. I will cut those off. Haven't snagged them yet, but I am definitely going to cut them off. So here, this is a point where both the road engineer and the mole can see the engines. So it'll be a good place to swap control over to the road engineers. So they'll probably take control at this point and start the engines up, start the train up, and have it run across the main line. Actually, if it did go up the inside track, it actually would cross over here also, because at this point, since now we're on the other side of the crossover, at this point of the second level, it is right-hand running. So it'll be right-hand running from here all the way around the second level to Evanston, to Wasatch, and then when it gets to Kerrville, it switches over to left-hand running. And so here it comes to the main line. Again, most of this upper level is going to be 10 inches wide, and it's going to be at eye level for the most part. This is 65 inches. It's going to go as high as 69 inches. So it'll be fun, even though it won't be very wide. Scenery will basically be ballast and static grass, with trees and so forth here at level, and then a photo backdrop of hills in the distance. But you'll be able to really get a good view of the models as they go by. So I'm looking forward to having that. I'm really glad I did go with the second level. I think it's going to be fun operating the trains on both the levels. And it'll be nice to have a really nice long run for the complete main line. So the second level is going to go all the way along the wall there and go across the peninsula to the other side without going above the peninsula. So that's all we have for this week's update. Glad that the Helix is completed, and looking forward to extending the main line through Evanston. So should have some bench work, maybe some track done by next week. Probably just bench work. But thank you so much for watching. Have a great Memorial Day tomorrow. And everybody take care as always.